Hi, listener. This is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ego and ideological doctrine in favor of meaning, purpose, and unity as a whole. So, what am I doing here on my phone? Well, my computer's being a bit slow. At first, I took it as an opportunity to do some breath work, which I do recommend, by the way. You doing breath work and stuff like that, being meditative, or reading or something. I would say breath work, especially when your computer's lagging, because what you could do if it's being slow is get irritable. You could start complaining. You could start yelling at your computer, or you could take some deep breaths. Just a thought. It's something I've started doing, and it works for me. So I was thinking of recording on my computer and doing some readings, essentially. There's one thing I do want to read in particular, but I might look at other stuff as well. And I figured I might as well just do it on my phone. Why not, right? I don't need to do it the same way every time. This does mean I can't put it on Anchor. I can only put it on YouTube, but that's fine. So, what have I got for you today? Well, yesterday I asked Mother Earth for opened her book, The Great Mother Bible, by Mare Cromwell, and I asked for a page. So I sort of quite randomly went to a page, and I got to a certain page. So yeah, there's how do I do this? Oops. Okay. So I've got to a certain page here, and I've got insight, I guess. So I'll start reading, I guess. Mother. So this is Mother Earth speaking. I'm not going to give you the context because happens to be the page I turned on to. Yes, sweetie, you are starting to really learn how divine love is there all around you. You experience receiving love from Spirit through the sacred fire, Divine Spirit, Creator, Great Mother, me as Earth Mother. The sacred fire is the alchemical conduit for this love, that is the Creator, Great Mother, and myself. You can take this love and share it. Keep it moving. Compassion and love really are the best places to sit in relationship on all levels with all beings. This includes all of the species on this planet, the worms, the spiders, even the tarantulas, gorillas, sharks, and wolves, all of them species. If you consider how people get scared of sharks, right? But sharks have a really key part in an ecosystem, and sometimes they're struggling, especially recently. Let's see what she has to say about this. Definitely, the sharks and wolves, they get such a bad rap and have been treated so poorly. They play an important role in their ecosystems as predators and are so misunderstood. They are such intelligent beings and carry a wisdom that is, so shark and wolf, and so powerful and beautiful. It has been breaking my heart to see them so maligned, killed, trapped, and poisoned. Again, it's these aliens who have been promoting the patriarchal and ignorant ways that have been decimating the wolves, sharks, and other species. They have been feeding the power-mongering at the root of the Catholic Church for many centuries. These aliens have been influencing much of the rage and suicide bombing in certain parts of the Middle East, and terrible policies in too many countries towards girls and women. The list goes on and on. I'm grateful these sorts of aliens are starting to go. So there's a whole bunch to unpack there. First of all, it's great that they're starting to go, probably because the frequency's rising, they know what's happening. Now, some of them may be trying to change what will happen, which is fruitless ultimately, because the awakening's happening. But yeah, many of them are going because they see the way it's going. And what they've been doing, you can call them archons, you could call them inorganic ones. There's different ways you could describe the negatively aligned aliens. The ones, I would say, underground, primarily. Well, there's also ones that visit, but also the ones that in underground and they come up and they're duck people and stuff. You know, they live. Some of them were there before us, but anyway. So they've been influencing us in various different ways, and so religion has been influenced by them. Like the Catholic Church, originally, if you took Christianity, you look at Christianity. Christianity was actually pretty good. Really early on, what Christ taught and all that. The Neoplatonists and the Gnostics, like there were some great teachings, but the inorganic ones started to influence that because it was a threat, and so they turned it from a threat to something that was serving them, which is something they typically try to do with everything. They either turn it to their advantage or they destroy it. So about the patriarchal and ignorant ways. So it's interesting that, to me, because I was very much an opponent of feminism, or at least what I saw feminism to be at the time, which was basically the pendulum going the opposite direction, in a sense, or a crusade, or it doesn't matter how I saw it. The point is that I was blind to the point that they did have, just because of some of their methods have been unloving, let me put it that way. Now, with ideology, there's of course a lot of toxicity in the battle between ideologies, which of course really benefits the inorganic ones. Now, there's nothing they like better than getting an ideology or a set of ideas that's loving and positive in certain ways and twisting it into something that serves their ends. Now, this is something that, for example, if you look at the left, let's say socialism, right, for argument's sake. Now, there's a care about inequality. So there's the people as a whole being trodden and social elites having a lot more control and power and them not getting paid well and just the general relationship being exploitative, right? There's concern about the little man being, it's like a sort of typical sort of, maybe in an anti-authoritarian attitude, also compassion towards those who suffer and have difficulty in life. And it takes that and it creates an anger and a rage towards, it twists it into an angry rage towards those who have more. It facilitates more envy, and there's nothing inherent about the ideas of socialism that is this way. However much I used to convince myself of that, however much opponents of it might convince themselves of that. But at the same time, you can look at like conservatism, and its desire to conserve the status quo and conserve traditions and community and so forth. And there's a care fundamentally about the health of society and the well-being of people in it, fundamental to that. And when you're on one side or the other, like you're blind to what the other side has to offer. And the reason for this is that you put it in the shadow, basically. There's aspects of what it represents and you put that in the shadow and then you don't account for it. And this is just part of the divide and conquer approach of these negative aliens. and the humans who are aligning with that as well. Those are serve as the self. So yeah, and I've been grappling with, do I have a way of integrating a new understanding of the problem with patriarchal norms and imbalances of the energy of gender, the suppression of, in a sense, of the divine feminine, and the wounding of the divine masculine that's been been the case for quite a long time. The problems in how male female interactions have been occurring, how that hurts women, and also how that affects men. But without on one hand being drawn into, how do I put it, the negative aspect of how feminism has been twisted in, unfortunately, belligerent ways and unloving ways, given the ideological landscape and the conflict between different movements, and the resentment that's been built up based on the suffering that women have gone through. And so there's certain negative aspects that I wish to avoid, and these are things that I saw when I was an opponent of feminism, feminism as I saw it. But at the same time, I don't want to just dismiss what the actual issues. I want to make sense of the actual issues in an enlightened, I might be flattering myself, but a spiritual kind of way, right? In line with these the mystic ideas that I've been coming to understand. And I feel that this is vital to do, because there are these whole sets of ideologies and ideas and philosophies that a lot of them have insight and have core fundamental principles or basis that is actually very loving, very much very important, and something which, if we can unify these key parts together, we can form something that not only has the virtues of all of it without the vices, but can actually bring people together. Unity, right? And here's the thing, right? The inorganic ones, they've even twisted the idea of unity into something negative. Because think about what fascism is. It's this idea of, you get these bundle of sticks, these different social groups, and these different classes in society, tied them together with a stick, the fascists, and forged them with force, I guess, an iron fist, into a united society. Interesting enough, there's actually links between syndicalism, which is anarcho-socialism, and Mussolini was actually kind of inspired by it, which is interesting. But then he twisted it into something authoritarian, and then you know the story with how terrible the Nazis were. And there was an agenda that influenced events and people, including Hitler, done by the negative aliens and the cabal, to set up a situation where the Nazis and the negative fascism, and basically, on one hand, right, it's taking advantage of the idea of unity and other things, such as the discuss mechanism, and a variety of other factors, to control the populace and bring about a certain agendas, right? But on the other hand, perhaps they knew in the future unity would be important for those trying to awaken, and if they could present unity in a way where it seems like it's a vile thing, maybe they could encourage the opposite. Maybe, now there's nothing wrong with diversity of thought, but the way diversity gets promoted and sometimes can be outright disunifying, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm going to get back to what she said there. So Gaia was talking about, obviously, imbalancing ecosystems and such that there's more sharks and wolves get killed and stuff like that. That does benefit the elites. They don't like harmony, right? We benefit from having being in touch with nature, and so, and the elites, the inorganic ones, those are the negative agenda. They benefit from what harms us, in a sense. They don't want us healthy psychologically, spiritually, physically. They want us unhealthy and dependent on them for the so-called solution. Problem, reaction, solution, right? I mean, and then there's the issue of they influenced Islam as well to be very negative towards women. It wasn't always that way. Maybe they even influenced the idea of pigs being, they took it from a thing being about health and to something else. The pork, I mean. And all the violence, I mean, it always is a bit confusing when you look at least if you're not from that culture, and you look at all these suicide bombings that keep happening in Iraq and stuff, and maybe not so much now, or maybe the news doesn't cover it so much, but I was just mystifying, like, they're doing it so much to their own people as well, like, but yeah, it's odd. But I mean, there's a lot of things, like, I mean, I've heard that there's Aborigine or native cultures in certain places. They look at our society, they see a lot of the problems that we often don't see ourselves, and I can imagine them just sort of shaking their heads, but concerned, because like we ourselves we don't know how far we've fallen, in a sense, because it's like boiling a frog. It happens gradually, you don't realize. And the Catholic Church has been influenced, and the cabal benefit, and the way they benefit from influencing religion in a negative way, is that not only do they get to control the believers, make more shame and fear and guilt more prevalent, and conflict with other cultures and religions more prevalent, and more suffering in general from those who don't fit in within the strict constraints of the way they shape religion, organized religion. But it also creates a situation later down the road where, because they deliberately facilitated the Enlightenment to be so cutting off of the actual spiritual insights, and people repressing things and stuff, like, because they didn't have that outlet for that spirituality had for their subconscious content. Now, this situation, this secularism, this combination of toxic organized religion, and in a sense, you could say a sort of hollow secularism, it created a situation where many people became atheists simply because, or very secular, because, well, look at religion. They're doing all these terrible things. You see all this negativity in religion. And it may be tempting to be drawn to, well, the solution is not that'll make people move away from spirituality and move towards ultimately nihilism. That's what you end up getting. I mean, you could say, okay, you might have existentialism, people finding purpose without religion, but it's, I tried. I do think it's possible, perhaps, but it's a lot more difficult to find a spiritual way of life without belief in God. And I think this was known and was deliberate. A deliberate situation was facilitated whereby a lot of people ended up being cut off. But maybe there's a grand orchestration beyond that, beyond which even those negative aliens knew, where, I mean, on a God source level, where a lot of the things that they plan and scheme end up working towards the awakening as well, because it's by being pushed so far. I mean, we cut off so much and being pushed so far, like a lot of people are awakening because of the difficulty that comes from being so cut off from spirituality and all these disharmonies. They can actually bring about more awakening, and I feel like that's part of what's been happening as well. So they typically shoot themselves in the foot, and of course they're accelerating their attempts in desperation to prevent the awakening because they know it's a threat, and they're desperate, and because of that they're accelerating their agendas, which of course accelerates the awakening even further, which it kind of creates an exponential situation of awakening more and more people as more and more people see how fucked things are. Yeah, so I'm going to carry on reading. So Mare says, Mother, these beings, are they the ones behind some of our technologies and networking venues such as Facebook? Mother, yes, they have been directing energies through all sorts of institutions, communication technologies, and other sorts of people of power. These are not very positive beings. So, I mean, there's all sorts of these institutions. Off the top of my head, I can't remember them all, but these institute of this and that and the other that they kind of have these negative agendas that aren't immediately apparent. And you get them in a number of places, like Davos is one of them. There's a number in the UK, there's in America especially, just around the world. Like there's different stuff, and it's all linked to the cabal. And of course Facebook is linked to that as well, because get people, you know about the negativity that people who get like sucked into social media can be, like the addiction to it. But then there's all the negativity, especially when it comes to politics and all this negativity that you get on social media as well. Like, I'm not saying it's inherently bad. I'm just saying that there's definitely that negative aspect playing out. Mare says, I guess that might explain some of the negative chatter on YouTube and an underlying energy I sense behind Facebook. When I'm on it for any longer than 5 minutes, it kicks up a frenetic, undergrounded, slightly anxious vibration within me, and it takes some time to calm down to be able to tune into you again. Mother. Yes, and this is why in your other book, Messages from Mother Earth Mother, I gave you that whole message on Facebook and twitting. Oh, and how much I wish I could get all of my beloved humans to disconnect more from your technology, your smartphones, your face place, and shift to tree place. Just to still yourselves. Just calm your minds and still yourselves and bring your beautiful, beautiful energy down into me. How I wish I could do this for you, but you need to do it for yourselves. Energy. Your thoughts are energy. Your words are even more powerful energy. Your actions are tremendous energy. Collectively, all of your actions are huge, huge currents of energy. Your vast collective unconscious contains an extensive amount of energy that has been going in the wrong direction for some time now. The wrong highway for me, your mother, upon whom you live, breathe, and make love, eat succulent peaches, and so much more. Some of my indigenous elders have always been on track and have been scratching their heads and shaking their fingers at the great sad direction of your post-industrial world. Yeah, because I've read some of this already, and that's what I was referring to when I was saying that they're shaking their heads. Like, the Kogis in Colombia have allowed the BBC to make a film and their message to the rest of you, whom they call the younger brothers. They consider themselves to be the elder brothers, That film, Heart of the World, Elder Brother's Warning, came out in the early 90s, but did not make much of a dent into your society's seeming determination to wreak havoc of terribly painful proportions on me. So the Kogi have put out another film called Aluna. This time it's not with the BBC, but they have gotten resources to do it themselves with the support of some friends. Every human across me, other than the indigenous ones who already know and live this wisdom, should watch these films. Yes, it would be most helpful if your Western society really got a handle on the reality of how everything is energy, and technology can amplify this energy. For example, I know just about all of you who use the internet have had experience with someone sending an email bomb to you. You know, this is when someone is so angry they vent everything they can into an email and push send. That email then arrives in your inbox as a packed box full of rage that goes kaboom in your face. For my sensitives who are empaths, they are almost knocked across the room by the energy of these emails. But even if they are not empaths, the energy of these missives can hit people very hard. This is because computers have tiny crystals, and these amplify energy. The original energy of the rage is even greater by the time the recipient receives the email. Plus, those certain beings who have been directing energy at the planet for these several thousand years, the ones who are starting to pack up and go, are also manipulating the energies in these computers to their ends. You know, this is the idea I thought of as well. So, this idea that a lot of the time, it's worth asking the question, when there's this negative thing playing out, is it deliberate? And I know you can always there's always this idea of why attribute it to malice on when you could attribute it to foolhardiness or stupidity or something, right? And there's some truth to that principle, but at the same time, it goes the other way. I mean, and even when it's not deliberate, there's a wider pattern to energies and how they play out, especially, pardon me, and when there's blockages and negative beings, that affects the flow of energy, and energy is ultimately what's behind everything that happens in this simulated reality. The rest is just playing out based on that energy. So, and that raises the question, when we're dealing with these negative energies sent across the internet, for example, the example that she mentioned there, like with the email bombs, or you know, people sending hate-filled messages to each other on Reddit or whatever, right? Like, this sort of thing,